You guys, when you open the sheet up, this is what you're likely going to see. It's going to be January 4th, 2018, and it's a tab in the bottom of a worksheet. And as I scroll through here, there's a number of days that you'll be able to see that have actual morning forecasts in them. And if I scroll to the far left tab here, the whole sheet is based on a series of different databases and import mechanisms that allow us to basically go through and do all of the scraping that it takes to produce this morning report. Let's just scroll back to December 24th. This is the last forecast that I did on this spreadsheet. And what you're greeted with as an outcome, and we'll work back from the outcome, is this morning. Okay, good morning. Here's my situation. This is what we're in. And the spreadsheet comes up and it produces a table on the front page which gives us basic information from 3 different study plots. And these could be anywhere. In our range, they're high left, high right in the base of our mountain. But you could make up whatever series of study plots that you wanted to follow. The second page in the debrief is basically a week-long season history. And what it looks like is we monitor 2 temperatures, the top of the world, which is referred to as tram, and the bottom of the world, which is referred to as base. And these 2 pieces of information can tell you whether your mountain's inverted. The numbers in black, I'll scroll in on them even closer, basically give you a mountain scale temperature swing for the day. And then backing back up, this chart also gives you the height of new, the snow water equivalent, and the height of snow for one of the study plots on the mountain. As I scroll back, you can get an idea of, from watching these charts from day by day, of what the height of new is doing and the SWE is doing. And you can also generally get a sense of what the temperature trends are doing just by looking at these. The red line and the blue line represent just arbitrary points on the temperature scale. The top one in red here being freezing. And what it does is it allows at any point in time I can look at a week's worth of weather history. The arrows naturally are wind directions, wind mileage, average wind speeds. It's all contained on this second page. I'm going to zoom back in on this. A complex page with a lot of information. Hopefully it's not overwhelming. What you do have the option of doing is pushing this little temps button here. And what that'll do eventually is go through and gray out all of my temperatures once the spinning wheel of death is done. Hopefully that won't take too long. And now I can just scratch the temps out, and I can just look at my height of snow and precipitation values for my favorite study plot. Scrolling back down just to get in closer, you can see here's my winds, average, direction, and these are all 24-hour averages. The sheet can be a little bit cumbersome in that sometimes it doesn't draw everything really well. But yeah, so anyhow, what I like to do is give my crew the option of seeing a week's worth of weather history. Down here we have what's called a defining event. And the defining event is the most idiosyncratic slide of the day, or the defining slide of the day. So I just pick one that I feel like describes what our avalanche history looks like for that given day. At the end of this whole process, what happens is this sheet gets written out to a PDF. And all of these pages are actually set up to be formatted for a 1080p device, basically, so that someone can download this and look at it on their cell phone. And what you're seeing here right now is the save document process, which is the autosave feature, which I should have turned off before I started making this video. And if need be, I'll have to cut that out. Some features on here while we're waiting for it to save. Wind values turn different colors. Yellow, between 500 and 600 miles of wind. Parenthetically, to remember, miles of wind is each hourly average summed up over 24 hours. So if you look at this mileage and the average miles per hour, it's basically this number times 24. And when it gets a little bit faster, it turns orange. When it gets over 750, I think, it turns red. Anyhow, the next thing that we do here is we look at our snowpack from a slightly different point of view. These 3 days represent the last 72 hours of information. Each of these white bars represents a generic snowpack, and it's a generic in that it doesn't have hand hardness on it. All it talks about is how deep is the snow and where in the snowpack is our layer of concern. Before we get over here, let's zoom in on this and give you a few closer looks at how this process is run. So every 72 hours back in history, we'll have a certain amount of new, a certain amount of settlement, and then the layers that we're concerned about. So if you look back to this date, what is it, the 23rd of December, we had seen just a little bit of settlement, a fair bit of new, so our snowpack HS was growing. And we had two layers we were worried about. We were worried about a layer that was given the name the December 22nd storm layer at 135 centimeters in the snowpack, which is a total of 160. And we're also worried about our Thanksgiving crust layers down here. And these are the two layers in the snowpack that we're concerned with. What you'll notice is that on the 24th, we lumped all of these layers into just the slab that overlies the Thanksgiving layer. And what you also can see here is that we received, 20 new centimeters of snow, but we saw 20 plus inches or centimeters of settlement. And we can see the snowpack, even though it was growing in terms of new snow, actually wound up with an HS less than what it started with. Part of that, to be fair, is likely wind stripping at the survey site, because these are all based on telemetry. But nonetheless, you can watch how the snowpack is evolving on these top numbers, and you can watch your weak layer sitting there on the bottom numbers. Little event flag on the side here says, hey, look, we've had events on this layer. Maybe this is something that you want to consider. This takes a little bit to figure out. This entire chart is customizable. You just type in whatever you want to change on here, whether it's where it is in the snowpack, its name, anything. And if you come over here and hit the update table button, it will update this table, and you can add layers by using the green, or you can take something like this and say, no, I'm going to make it this number instead, and when I hit update table, it will in fact take that layer out because I gave it a closing date. And all of these things should have up here, there should be video links to where these are. Maybe that's on a different sheet, or maybe it's later on that I put those in. At any rate, you can update these, and what happens, we'll just do this. Doesn't really matter at this point. If I hit update table, what it does is goes through and it closes that layer for that given day. Obviously, the computer's working hard right now because I'm both doing a screen capture and as well I'm manipulating quite a few numbers. The spreadsheet is not programmed to be super fast or svelte. You see I took that layer out, and when you look over here, correspondingly, you don't see that layer listed in the pile here. Down below this, we discuss the top two layers in this table. Concern 1, where it's located. That rose diagram is defined by the numbers in here and the aspects listed here. And then whatever you want to wrap about a given layer, same for concern 2. And then what happens after we go through this basic assessment of our snowpack, we go down into talking about concerns. And so here's where you do the risk analysis, which we covered. And this is a different format, but it's basically the same thing that you already saw. The problem character is defined first by where it's located. So the Rose diagram does an aspect and elevation discussion. And if you look at it, I'm looking at my mid and high elevations. Alpine's not being forecasted for, nor is low. And then the evidence that goes into why we're talking about this. Scrolling back out to get a big picture view, we talk about the actual likelihood and consequence here. So it's possible to trigger, and it will be difficult or engaging to figure out whether or not you're going to get a result. And we're really referring to ski cuts on here. It's given an unpredictable, difficult, engaging, or easy predictability piece. And this is just for the ski guide to figure out whether or not they're expecting something difficult or not. And it helps people set their mind up. This isn't in the conceptual model. This is something added specifically for our department. Consequence gauge by the D scale of a given slide. It loosely reflects the orders of magnitude that these things can be incremented by. Scrolling over to the bottom left side, we talk about sensitivity and continuity. So basically, how sensitive will these events be as far as trying to get things to go, and where we're looking for things, where we're looking at the problem. The continuity piece being widespread, specific, isolated, limited. You'd recognize that vocabulary. And then the trend. I know it says hazard trend, it's supposed to say danger trend, but people are used to looking at that. And then something that's not part of the conceptual model is this category called manageability thoughts. And this is where you go through and say, hey, look, this is what the issue is, and here's my thoughts on how we're going to be able to manage it. And then once again, on this one, we're looking at just our first concern. The baseline default is that there's one concern, or I'm sorry, there's two concerns. Right here, this has been customized to only have one concern. Then we go into strategic mindset. What you can do with these is basically grab any strategic mindset that you want, and it will give you the definitions and talk about operating strategy. This one's being done for Exim, so Exim prefers to speak about stability, not about danger, which is what the forecast center talks in. And then we have finally a little bit of discussion about other hazards, some terrain considerations, and then the last statement that kind of is designed to tie everything together. The forecaster in the morning goes through and picks the previous 24-hour defining event. Once that's typed in, they come over here and they click the Add Event button, and that puts it into the database. So that's basically our morning meeting in a nutshell. And what happens after this is all completed, this Publish PDF button is highlighted, and what it does is it selects the whole of this, which is effectively, I'll see if it does it. Wow, I'm really stressing my machine trying to do a screen capture. Pardon this. Basically, it selects from here all the way to the upper corner. All of the cells are formatted to make a 5 or 6 page document that then is shipped out to a PDF. That's the morning meeting following the conceptual model in a nutshell. I'll leave these in here so you can look at them. 25th and 26th were actually written by a different person than myself, but I don't think he would mind. And now let's look at how this thing actually works. So let's scroll over to the end. This thing naturally built me at January 4th, which is the date I'm recording this. And you'll notice that there's nothing in here for data. And the reason is that this thing hasn't been updated since the 26th. So how this whole chart works and all of that baseline weather information is stored in this thing called the microbase. And the microbase is a huge table. It covers a lot of different areas, a lot of different pieces of information. But if you scroll in close, Each of these columns has a date name on it, and each of the rows has a particular piece of information that it is trying to consume. And so if I scroll across from here, you can see we're doing good all the way to the 26th of December, and then these are all empty save for today, which is the 4th. So if I want to go get all the information for the 3rd of December, what I need to do in my zone is I need to go over here to a page on the Bridger Teton Forest Avalanche Center site, and they publish every day at 5 a.m. a synopsis of all the weather stations throughout their area. And what I can do is I can click on the 3rd, and the way this spreadsheet is set up is that if I highlight from here down through and I do a copy of that selection of data, I can then come back over with the clipboard loaded, and I can go to this page called Mission Control, click on Add BTNF Data. It gives me a nag screen that says, have I copied it, in case I forgot to, or if I accidentally click that button. I can say no, but I'm going to say yes because I did grab everything. And what it does is it pastes into the spreadsheet everything I highlighted from this page, and then it goes through and parses it into the microbase, which is where the table where I store everything. And it's going to take it a second, it would appear, or more than a second. Wow, it's going to take it quite a bit more than a second. I guess I'm only going to do one of these. Maybe you'll have to re-watch that to see how to update this thing, but when you look at it now, all of the data from the 3rd, which I didn't have before, has been pasted into its corresponding cell. And if I scroll back out here and I look at January 4th, what you'll notice is this set of weather bars has been populated for that day. So what I would have to do to get this up to date is go through the process I just showed you half a dozen more times until I fill in the gaps. Maybe I'll demo it one more time now that you know what's coming, and we'll have a look at it. I know you can fast forward if you don't want to see this done again. But here I am. Here's my table. When I click on this, there's my information for the 2nd. I know I don't have it. I highlight the pertinent information. I hit the copy button. I ping back over here. Go to the Mission Control page, which is where a series of buttons are set up that allows me to do different processes. In this case, I want to add the BTNF data. Once again, it nag screens me. I click yes, and now it brings everything in. Usually after you've done one, it goes pretty quick. There's some other buttons on here. This is if you're, let's say I wanted to build a forecast for tomorrow, January 4th or January 5th. I could click this button, and what it does is it goes through the database, compiles everything I need to have, and what it will do is it's going to spit me out on the bottom row with a brand new tab for tomorrow's forecast. This allows me to begin the day before writing a forecast for the day before. I'll delete this tab when I get, well, actually it'll probably be a few days old by the time you get it, but this will allow you to create the next day's forecast. And the only reason I'm showing it to you is this is what it does or can do automatically every day if you so program it to. And here it is. It's going to take it a second to finish its last decision making. There's a lot of very slow programming that this thing goes through. You notice it still has my Thanksgiving crust placed in here, but you'll see here there's no bar because this is for January 5th, and January 5th hasn't happened yet. If you look up here in the tables, they're all zeros because there's no data for tomorrow yet. I'll scroll back out, it's all zeros. And you'll notice that right here, this weather bar shows nothing because, once again, tomorrow hasn't happened yet. If I look at today, it reflects the 2 updates that I've already done, and obviously there wasn't much snow falling on that day. Anyhow, yeah, we've been dry down here. This is generally how this whole process goes forward. I'm going to go back to mission control because this is what we were working in. If I shut off the automatic nature of building these meetings by clicking this button, that turns this to off. Next time this thing opens, I'll leave auto update on so that when you open it, you'll automatically get the day of that you opened it loaded into the microbase. That's an automatic feature. And then you'll have to use the manual feature to add any successive days. And then if you want to make a meeting for the day that you're working in, you have to click to create meeting presentation. The reason I'm not getting the little finger that allows me to push that button is that I've been talking long enough that it is once again saving the document. Anyhow, that's a very cursory look at things. There's a lot of code in this. Dan, you're probably going to chew this up. Ryan, you're probably going to be like, well, what in the hell is he even thinking about? Feel free to go through and have a look at how these things work, what pieces work for you. There's a few other things in here that maybe you'll stimulate some ideas for things that you guys can work with. One of the things in particular is this idea of the obs page. The observations page is should be a bunch of pictures. Here they are. They're down here lower. Just a spreadsheet that allows you to type over a diagram. So I could maybe have an event here and I could flag it as something I want to talk about. This all deals with the Tetons terrain. These are variations on using a rose bullet for accumulating information. It has a history page in it, which if it comes up, gives me a 30-day history. Allows me to track every day for a month, and then the purple lines here are storm cycle accumulations. That's in there. Let's see. This concern sheet is basically set up to track layers of concern consecutively throughout the season, and you saw me updating that with the look at these particular bars on the concerns and discussions page. That's pretty much all this particular sheet has in it. The rose thing, this is just a development tool, and what it's supposed to do is it allows me to say, let's see, I should type in a number. How about 247? Boom. Oh, formatting. I did something wrong. It's not happy with me. But this allows you to make an adjustable rows diagram. This is just here as a there it is now. It's working. So you saw how I moved it over to 247 and this rows diagram updated. It's just a descriptive tool for talking about the rose bullets. Get out of that. Yeah, that kind of covers it. There's an awful lot in here. Once again, take the pieces that work for you, scrape them, use them. Maybe it's going to be just totally confusing, or maybe it'll give you some ideas for yourself. Long-winded discussion. I'll get this up on YouTube and I'll send you an email. Good luck. Super cool meeting you guys, and hopefully down the road sometime